Good morning from the Higher Grounds podcast. I'm thrilled to be back with you for another morning minute meditation. Hope this morning finds you well. I want to talk to you a minute on the subject of conflict. Conflict is not just a part of the Christian life, but conflict is a part of life in general. I guess all of us have different thoughts and feelings toward conflict. Personally, I can't stand conflict. I try to stay away from it. But the truth is, if you serve God, then you're going to find yourself from time to time in the middle of conflict and controversy. I've been thinking about Moses. Moses, his life was definitely full of instances of conflict and controversy. The one that's really stuck out to me recently is in Exodus chapter number 5. In this chapter, Moses goes to Pharaoh. He tells Pharaoh that God said to let his people go. Pharaoh mocks Moses. He mocks his God. He definitely doesn't let Israel go and worship. So when Moses leaves, Pharaoh makes it harder on the nation of Israel. The officers are beaten, and they're given the responsibility of continuing to make as many bricks as they had before, but now they had to find their own straw. So it was just a mess that Pharaoh and Moses and the nation of Israel and everybody was in all together. And eventually, after the officers go to Pharaoh and they beg for mercy, Pharaoh doesn't listen. I guess they just went to their last resort to release their frustration. But they go to Moses. And in Exodus 5 and verse 21, they meet Moses and Aaron in the way. And here's what they say. They looked at Moses and they said, "The Lord judge you." Now, we know Moses was doing what was right. He was in the middle of God's will. But in their eyes, things had just gotten worse since Moses had come to Egypt. And they, in their mind, thought Moses was doing wrong. So there's this conflict of ideas. There's controversy right here in this verse. And Moses has to deal with it. Now, there's several different things that you can look at of how Moses dealt with this conflict. But this is the one I want to give you this morning. When they say this, in verse number 21, they said, "The Lord look upon you and judge, because you have made our Savior to be abhorred in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to slay us." Do you know what Moses said to them after they say this? He didn't say anything at all. The Bible doesn't give us any record of Moses trying to defend himself. Now, remember, they've just accused Moses of sinning. They've accused Moses of doing wrong. They've told Moses God should judge you for what you've done and this pain that you've brought in our life. And I feel like if I'd have been Moses, my first response would have been to defend myself, to try to defend my position that I'm in the will of God. But Moses didn't say anything. In fact, the next thing that he says is when he goes back to the Lord and he begins to pray to God. I think one of the greatest lessons we can learn from Moses' life is that when we find ourselves in conflict and controversy, usually the best thing to do is just be quiet. Just pray about it. Let God deal with it. But a lot of the times we make controversy and conflict worse because we feel like we need to defend ourselves. But really, the truth never needs to be defended. We shouldn't back away from it. I'm not going to compromise on the truth, but I think we can learn a lot of just being quiet in our conflicts. I hope that'll help you this morning. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you next time on the Higher Grounds podcast.